Welcome back to the National University Debate Competition here on Zimbabwe's television network. We are proudly sponsored by SAIH. We're sponsored by the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe, and we're sponsored by SAYWHAT. We've had 3 very intriguing debates, and indeed now we continue. There's always this contention. There's a university in Zimbabwe that says there are only 2 universities in Zimbabwe. University of Zimbabwe and others. And on the other hand, we have Great Zimbabwe University here. Which is the real Zimbabwe? Indeed, this shall settle that battle, the battle of Zimbabwe. We have Great Zimbabwe University and the University of Zimbabwe in this our 4th debate. I shall have the Affirmers, student 1, state your name and the program that you're studying.
Greetings everyone, my name is Dabates. I'm studying Peace, Conflict and Governance at Great Zimbabwe University.
And may we have a student 2 from the same team introducing yourself and what you're studying.
Hello, my name is Stefazo Jolin Hove. I'm studying Banking and Finance at the university, at the Great Zimbabwe University. Thank you.
May we have the opposers, please, student 1, your name, your program.
Good morning, Zimbabwe. My name is Sister Maria Chikwati, and I am from the University of Zimbabwe, studying towards a degree in administration.
And may your partner do the same.
Morning, Zimbabwe. My name is Ebenezer Kudita, Part 2 economic student at the University of Zimbabwe.
And indeed, Ebenezer, thus far the Lord has taken us, and we are going to be looking at funding for young people's sexual and reproductive health misplaced. That topic yet again, funding for young people's SRH misplaced. We shall start with the affirmative opening speech by student number 1. That shall be 3 minutes. It starts now.
Panel, we are the motion that funding for young people's sexual and reproductive health is misplaced. What is misplaced? It is something that is directed towards the wrong priorities. Young people, we're looking at persons between the ages of 15 and 30. So we have a context whereby of the 4.2 billion of the annual government budget, only 686 million is directed towards health, and three quarters of that is directed towards hospital equipment such as x-rays. Only a quarter going towards young people's sexual and reproductive health through quarter sectors such as condoms. We have also over $300 million coming in from donors such as Sweden, Denmark, Norway, the European Union, through NGOs such as the USAID, UNAIDS, FPA, and the government doing the same through operations such as National AIDS Council. So the problem whereby we're saying that all the financial resources directed by these two, the government and the donor sector, are going towards short-term priorities, and that this money and these funds are being misplaced. Why? Because short-term priorities will not help us in the long run in solving the root cause of sexual and reproductive health problems that youth are facing nowadays. We believe that it's problematic when funds are misplaced to short-term priorities and objectives. We have witnessed over 80,000 illegal abortions, unwanted pregnancies, HIV infections within the blood of young people in the past decade. And we have a dependence syndrome whereby we have a government that relies more on donor support than on its own money for funding these sexual and reproductive health for young people. So we are of the context that the funds should be directed towards a health policy reform sector, whereby we're saying that we should now change the ways in which we raise and allocate funds for young people's health. Because what happens if the donor, what if it happens when the USAID, the famous contributor of the Black Panther condoms, suddenly says there is no funds today? It's going to be havoc within the young people sector within Zimbabwe. So we're arguing that we should rather have a health policy reform whereby we support youth financial literacy and entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen, whereby youth, particularly the girl child, is empowered to be financially stable and entrepreneurship ideas. Because right now we have a top-down approach whereby an NGO goes and does a survey of a small population and says all the youth, they want condoms. Is it the right approach, ladies and gentlemen? Condoms are a short-term solution because we are still witnessing a high levels of unwanted pregnancies, STI, HIV infections within the of tertiary institutions. Why? Because it's a short-term solution whereby we advocate for condoms and all that. So we rather have a health policy reform whereby we change the ways in which we raise and allocate funds, and we rather channel funds towards youth financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, SAYWHAT is a very good example, ladies and gentlemen, of why when NGOs are not there, ladies and gentlemen, when donors are not there, youth themselves are able to solve their own own problems because they have been financially and skillfully equipped on their own to help solve the problems which they know. Why are youth engaging in unprotected sex? Yet with condoms, youth answer the question when they have the necessary skills. And with this, I thank you.
Thank you, and we got mention of the famous Black Panther condoms. If you're a Dynamo supporter, you'd know about those. Now, the opposers cross-examination by student number 2. 1 minute. Now.
Morning. What do you think is the most pertinent issue affecting youth in terms of sexual reproductive health?
I think it's poverty. That is the most pertinent youth.
I'm saying in terms of sexual reproductive health, what is affecting them the most?
It's poverty.
Okay.
I say by my point.
Second question, what do you think is the best solution to deal with the issue of unprotected sex?
The best solution is financially equipping youth so as they attack poverty, which is the root cause, forcing them to have unprotected sex. Because condoms are there, but they're not using them.
Okay, so you are saying condoms are a solution?
I'm saying condoms are a short-term solution. Long-term solution is health policy reform.
No, I'm saying, so you're saying health policy reform will suddenly stop making people having sex?
Yes, because youth know why they're having unprotected sex. Youth have the solutions. So why we're having a top-down approach,
so you're saying
approach.
So you're saying only the poor have sex?
I am saying condoms are effective, yes, in the short term. Long-term solutions, ladies and gentlemen, long-term solutions are health policy reform. Both condoms can be gone with USAID gone. Simple.
Okay.
Simple. Simple. Only the poor have sex. That's interesting. Opposers, opening speech. Student number 1, that shall be 3 minutes. It starts now.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. It is baffling that the Affirmers would come here and talk about how funding is misplaced, where they're on the platform that is funded for sexual reproductive health. Is it misplaced? Is this debate misplaced? I beg to differ. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start to talk about while funding is about priorities. What are the priorities in Zimbabwe? What are the priorities in Africa about sexual reproductive health? The priorities are about awareness, raising awareness for the students, raising awareness for young people, and that is what SAYWHAT is trying to do. That is what other non-governmental organizations are trying to do. That is what the government is trying to do. So how then can you say that funding is misplaced? The Affirmers talked about how the 1/4 is just the 1/4 that's given to sexual reproductive health, but we are not worried about the 3/4. That 1/4, that's what we are talking about. Is it misplaced? It is not misplaced. It is rightly placed. It is rightly placed. Why? We are at a stage where we have people, young people, engaging in sexual activity, and they need to be protected against unwanted pregnancies, protected against unwanted diseases. How can this be done? By the issuance of condoms in tertiary educations, by the education about teaching the girl child how to negotiate sex, how to say no to sex. And because of that, that is the only way we can move forward as a country, as a continent, and globally. So ladies and gentlemen, it is not misplaced. Funding for young people's sexual reproductive health is not misplaced. It is actually on the right place because it is raising awareness in the youth. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we realize that we are now at a stage where we need to initiate change by involving the people that need the change. Involving change by involving the people that need the change. The people that need the change are the youth. So involving the youth is the only way to go. A famous proverb says, something that is done for us that does not include us is not for us. So including the youth in sexual reproductive health issues is the only way to go. And we notice that non-governmental organizations are focusing on this. SAYWHAT started as a group of young people talking about sexual reproductive health issues. And it is that way that they can only be able to understand each other and construct ways of having a better future in terms of sexual reproductive health. So how then can you stand here and say that funding is misplaced? So SAYWHAT should not be funded because it is focusing on involving youths in creating solutions for fighting against issues that disturb youths. Ladies and gentlemen, it is, like I said before, baffling that someone would even say that it is misplaced. Moving on, I would like to also take note of the issue of abortion that is affecting many youths in Africa. Abortion is a serious issue that is affecting young women, and it needs to be decriminalized. Thank you.
Thank you. Today we are proudly sponsored by the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe, by SAYWHAT, and indeed the Norwegian Students and Academics International Assistance Fund, SAIH. The topic, right now is funding for young people's SRH misplaced. We shall have the affirmative cross-examination. That shall be a minute, and it starts now.
Morning, ma'am. If sexual reproductive funds are well placed, why are we still facing sexual reproductive health problems?
We are still facing them because sexual reproductive health issues are a continuous thing, but the rate at which we're facing them, we're trying to decrease that. That's why we're saying that it is rightly placed, because the statistics continue to go down as we continue to educate
Okay,
young
thank
people.
you. If donors withdraw their funding, what will happen?
If donors withdraw their funding, then it means we have government stepping in, because it's not just donors that are funding sexual reproductive health. We also have the government funding that through implementing policies, through the legislature, and through other branches of government.
Okay, thank you. If sexual reproductive funds are well placed, why do we have this problem of donor syndrome, which is there, and you can't deny that?
Can you come again?
Why do we have a problem of donor syndrome if the funds are well placed?
We have a problem of the donor syndrome, but it is not the question of debate today. The question of the debate today is about whether that funding is rightly placed or not.
And time. We shall have the opposer's rebuttal by a student number 2, and that shall be 2 minutes, which starts now. Opposer's rebuttal.
Mine.
Student 2.
Oh, okay.
Your time has already started.
Okay, so I feel like the opposition delegation does not totally understand the issues that we're supposed to be debating here in question. First, they talk about how there's a donor syndrome and how there are so many issues that are still existing that have not been solved. But the question is not about solving the problems. We're saying that with the little money that exists in the current climate, is that money being allocated to the correct places, which is the question that we're supposed to be arguing today. So they tell you that no, we should be trying to solve poverty. But the money that is allocated, as they rightfully said, is not enough to try and solve poverty. Besides, sex is not an issue of poor or rich. Everyone engages in sex, so it's not an issue of poverty or class. Rather, it is an issue about how then do we best address these issues. Let's characterize the nature of funding, because for you to say that something is not being correctly being funded, you need to show us, you need to characterize the way it's being funded and then pinpoint where exactly it's going wrong. Firstly, I'll tell you that funding for sexual reproductive health it exists in 2 forms. Firstly, it exists in terms of awareness campaigns where there is awareness in the time to emancipate the girl child and people about how their sexual reproductive health. That's the first main form of funding. The second one, it exists in the form of actually distributing physical aid like HIV and AIDS, self-testing kits, and distribution of condoms and all these things, which are the 2 forms. So when they come and argue that say, no, we need a reform, we need people to be emancipated and be taught, which is exactly what is currently happening in the status quo. So they ought to come and show us where exactly is the funding going wrong. So we think that they don't in terms of fulfill their mandate. We'll tell you about the SBCC, the Social Behavior Change and Community Strategies implemented in 2016, which is supposed to run to 2020. We'll tell you about the Zimbabwe National Family Planning Strategy from 2016 to 2020, the Adolescents, Youth, Sexual Reproduction Health, AYSHRH. We can go through the whole alphabet of abbreviations of initiatives that have been done to raise awareness and also provide physical equipment in terms of fighting sexual reproductive health. Thank you very much.
And the affirmative rebuttal, well, that starts now, and it's by student number 2, 2 minutes.
Now, the non-affirmative actually admitted that we have a donor syndrome. Now, if we have a donor syndrome, they said that if we remove donors, the government is going to chip in. Now, not that. The fact that we have non-governmental organizations chip in, it means that the government is failing. So that point is now and void. Welcome to our delegation, ma'am. Now, we want to attack the root cause of sexual reproductive problems, which is poverty. Now, attacking poverty, it means all the problems are going to be solved in the long term. Now, they're only looking at short-term goals. Now, we want a solution where we reduce the numbers of sexual reproductive health problems in the long term. As we have, they talked about issue of awareness, but we have awareness that is going on, and on a yearly basis, the issues of sexual reproductive problems, they are increasing. The numbers are increasing each and every single year, which means awareness is not working. They also came here and talked about having condoms having to be given to students, is actually being funding having to be placed. Well, now, ma'am, you talked about abortion. The fact that we have abortion in process, it means that these condoms are being ignored. Now, sex is a choice, but issues like menstruation, which is in sexual reproductive health, is not a choice. You're going to menstruate whether you like it or not. But giving a person condoms and saying that you're going to practice sex, it doesn't mean that I'm going to practice sex. I'm actually ignore the condom. That means that the funding is not well placed. Put it in a situation where someone does not have the choice to menstruate or not, and help that girl give her pads and not provide condoms to an individual who is not even going to use them. Now, moving on, they also talked about involving youth in these programs, and we thank you. We are saying that we want to involve youth in these programs. We want programs like SAYWHAT, more of these programs. Now, funding, if it's placed in areas like that, it means we are emancipating these youth. Now they do not have to go into scenarios which actually put them in problems in the long run. Because all the problems that we're facing right now, actually invested in the youth, as we're saying, is because they are in abstract poverty. And since you're in poverty, you're going to engage in sexual activities, which is going to lead to more health problems that we have. Now, why not attack the root cause and look at long-term goals, which is going to eradicate or decrease the rate of sexual reproductive health problems, which they failed to do. Thank you.
We shall have the closing remarks. Student 1, 1 minute, 30 seconds now.
Ladies and gentlemen, having not enough money does not mean misplacement. That is a point that the Affirmers really missed. What we're talking about today is the money that we have, is it being used for the right purposes? The money that we have from donors, the money that we have from the government, the money that we have from non-government organizations, is it being rightly placed? That is the question today, but that is the question that they also missed. The Affirmers talked about how funding is placed towards condoms and not pads, but that is a total lie, ladies and gentlemen. From my research, I understand that pads are actually being given to women and girls that are in undeveloped areas or underdeveloped areas. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen, in our African society. So coming here and saying that pads are not being given is just a blatant lie. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reaffirm the fact that funding for sexual reproductive health is not misplaced. It is rightly placed because it is involving youths, it is raising awareness, it is giving the chance to the youth for them to be empowered, for them to have a right to be able to say no to sex, or for a right for them when they actually decide to engage in sex to do it safely, and for them to be able to fight such vulnerabilities of young girls engaging in sexual activities with rich men, because they'll be empowered. Why? Because of the funding that is coming from NGOs or the government.
And student 1 from the affirmative will give us the closing remarks in 1 minute and 30 seconds, which starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the non-affirmative comes here and tells us that, give us a list of acronyms that we have issues that we're trying to make, but where are we right now? That's the major question we should be asking ourselves. Well, we're in a state whereby we're witnessing over 8,000 legal abortions each year. We're witnessing 20,000 maternal deaths. We're witnessing high levels of HIV infections, STI infections, day to day in our day-to-day lives. And they're saying condoms are being disseminated. Where are we now? We are wasting money. We're using money going to information dissemination, talking to people that you should abstain, safe sex is important. But as long as we're not tackling the root cause of why youths are engaging in these unscrupulous sexual activities, it's not pleasure, it is poverty, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're saying. And we're saying that as long as we don't attack the root cause of why these issues are happening, as long as we're continuing distributing condoms, 50,000 of them, people are getting, and they say that people are having abortions. So condoms are not working. It's clearly a failure on part of the non-affirmative side. So what are we saying? We're saying that for us, we should put these funds towards a long-term priority solution, which is health sector reform. In which we're saying we're financially empowering the youth, particularly the girl child, that we've taken the root cause of why people and youth particularly are engaging in these unscrupulous activities, which will then lower what sexual reproductive health problems, such as abortions, unplanned pregnancies, all of that. So we're saying that short-term condom distribution and information will not work in the long term, but information, public health reform will work. So they will not work, but we will work.
Well, simple. Clearly somebody doesn't like acronyms, and this wraps up this particular debate where we're looking at funding for young people's sexual and reproductive health rights being misplaced. University of Zimbabwe, Great Zimbabwe University, which is the real Zimbabwe? We will find out, of course, when the results come in. And our ZEC, or is it DEC, the Debate Electoral Commission, is collating the V11s right now. We shall be going forward, where we shall be having the Harare Institute of Technology versus Lupane State University in yet another debate that shall be following. Thank you so much. Very riveting, very interesting. We shall be back with yet another hot debate. Stay tuned.